The diagram shows the route of a mail boat sailing from port P to port Q, and then to port R. The bearing of port Q from port P is 132 degrees, and the bearing of port R from port Q is 256 degrees. And here we have the diagram, and they want us to calculate the size of angle PQR. And so where is angle PQR? Let's highlight that angle. They want us to determine, so this is P, Q, and R. So they want us to determine what is the size of this particular angle right here, right? What is the size of this angle right here, angle Q? Now, in order to do this, what we're gonna do is we know that from here all the way to here, right? This particular angle, starting from here all the way to here, we know that that is 256 degrees, all right? Now, what is the size of this angle right here? Let's call this angle M. What is the size of this angle? Now, if we could figure out what is the size of this angle, we know that angles around a point add up to 360 degrees. We know that angles, we know that angles around a point add up to 360 degrees. And so here we have the point, and we know that angles around a point add up to 360 degrees. We also know that one revolution is 360 degrees. So if we could figure out what is the size of this M, along with adding that to 256, we can take that sum and subtract it from 360, and then we can get what this angle is. And so that's what we're gonna do. Let's figure out what is the size of M. Now, notice that this here is a line, but this line here is parallel to this line, all right? So these two lines are parallel, all right? And then we have this line right here. So M and 132, right? These are what you call co-interior angles, all right? Because they form a C shape, and let me highlight the C shape that is formed. They form a C shape. So once you have this C shape forming with these parallel lines and a transversal, right? This is the C shape. And so that means that this angle right here and this angle right here, they must add up to 180 degrees. That means that they are supplementary. And so co-interior angles are supplementary. They add up to 180 degrees. And so that means that angle M along with 132 must add up to 180 degrees. And so to get what is the size of angle M, we say 180 minus 132, and we get 48. So that means that M is 48. So now that we know that M is 48, and we know that from here to here is 256, let's add those two and subtract that sum from 360 degrees. And so in order for us to get angle PQR, we're gonna take 360 degrees and minus it with 48 plus 256. And 256 plus 48 gives us 304. So we have 360 minus 304. And when we subtract, we get that PQR is equal to 56 degrees. And so what does that mean? Well, that means that this angle right here, right? This angle right here is 56 degrees. All right, this angle is 56 degrees. We know that M is 48. All right, M is 48. And we know that from here all the way to here is 256. And it makes sense because one revolution, right? One revolution is 360 degrees. And so angles around the same point must add up to 360 degrees. And if we add 256, 56, and 48, we definitely get 360 degrees. And so that's why this angle right here is 56 degrees. Next, they tell us that the distance from port P to port Q is 240 kilometers. The distance from port Q to port R is 340 kilometers. Calculate the distance RP. So we have to figure out what is the size of RP, right? RP. Calculate the distance RP, giving your answer correct to the nearest whole number. And so in order to do this, we're going to use the cosine rule for finding the missing side. And so the cosine rule says that a squared is equal to b squared plus c squared minus 2bc cosine of a, where small a is equal to the side that is missing, the side that we're trying to find, that's RP. That's what small a is. And capital A is equal to the angle that corresponds, or the angle that is opposite to the small that is opposite to small a. So once we have the missing side, the side that is opposite the angle, sorry, that is opposite the missing side is capital A. So once we have identified the missing side, we call that A, and the angle that is opposite the missing side, we call that capital A. And in this case, capital A is equal to 56 degrees. And the other two sides, we call this one B and we call the other one C. All right, so let's substitute. We know that B is 340, C is 240, B is 340, and C is 240, and capital A is 56 degrees. And we have to compute. We say that 340 squared plus 240 squared is 173,200, and 2 times 340 times 240 is 163,200. And so we have to subtract. We say 173,200 minus 163,200 cosine times cosine of 56. That gives us 81,939.71815. Now we have to take the square root of both sides because we want to get rid of this power 2. So if we take the square root of both sides, this cancel with that. So we get that A is equal to the square root of 81,939.71815. And so when we take the square root of this answer, we get that A is equal to 286.2511452. But they want us to round this correct to the nearest whole number. And if you notice here that this number right here is less than 5, and so since this number is less than 5, we cannot round up. And so we'll just have that A is equal to 286. And so that means that RP, which is the missing side, RP is equal to 286 kilometers. And that's the answer to this question. Next, so we already know that this is 286. Next, we have to calculate the bearing of port R from port P. Now, we have the bearing of port R from port P. So if we have to say from port P, so that means that we have to start at port P, and then we have to draw our north. The good thing is already drawn for us, right? And the north just basically is a line that is drawn straight up from the point. Now we want the bearing of port R from port P. So we're gonna start at P and go all the way here, all right? So this is what they want. Let me erase that and use a pen instead. So we want this particular angle, right? We want this particular angle. Let me use a pen. So we want this angle right here, this angle, all of this, all right? All of this. Now, what do we know so far? We know that this is 132, so we know that part. From here to here, we know, right? From here to here, we know that, right? We just have to figure out what is the size of from here all the way to here, right? All right, from here all the way to here. We just have to figure out what is that, right? And that angle is the angle that's inside of the triangle. So we have to figure out what is this angle. Once we figure out what is this angle, then we can add those two angles to get the bearing. All right. Remember, the bearing is the whole angle, right? The whole angle from here all the way till we reach here. But we only know what is 132. We don't know what is this angle right here, the angle inside. Once we figure what is this angle inside, to get the bearing, we're going to add this angle that's inside along with 132, and that'll give us the answer. And so what we're going to do is we have to figure out what is this angle. We call this angle A, right? That's the missing angle. We call it at A. And then we're going to use the cosine rule for finding the missing angle in order to find what is the missing angle that we called A. Now, capital A is the missing angle, and the side that is opposite, the missing angle is going to be small a. Okay. B and C are the lengths of the other sides of the triangle. So B is 240 kilometers and C is 286 kilometers. And so we substitute our values. B is 240, C is 286, A is 340, B is 240, and C is 286. Next, we say, okay, 240 squared plus 286 squared minus 340 squared, we get 23,796. And we divide that by 2 times 240 times 286, which gives us 137,280. Next, we divide these two numbers, and when we divide them, we get, well, we don't divide them yet. We don't divide them. What we do is we take the cosine inverse of both sides. And so we don't divide them. We keep the fraction as such, but we take the cosine inverse of both sides. So the cosine inverse of this side and the cosine inverse of this side. What would that allow us to do is that this cosine inverse will cancel with this cosine, leaving us just with A, right? Just with the angle A. And so we get that the angle A is equal to cosine inverse of 23,796 divided by 137,280. And the cosine inverse of this fraction is going to be equal to 80.017978. And so that is what is angle A, right? Angle A is equal to this particular answer, 80.017978. That's what angle A is. But remember, we're trying to figure what is the bearing. So the bearing is going to be angle A plus 132. And so let's add them. So the bearing of port R from port P is going to be angle A plus 132 degrees. And so when we add them, we get 212.017978. And we are going to write our answer correct to 2 decimal places. We understand that this is 7, and once it's 5 or greater than 5, we round up. So we add 1 to 1, and that gives us 2. And so correct to 2 decimal places, we have that our answer is 212.02. That is the bearing of port R from port P. And that's the answer to this particular question.